Hello and welcome to today's video. As you can see, the footage is already starting and it's a little bit different from the way I usually do my videos. I've talked about before that I really don't want to do time-lapse footage and I don't want to spend time speeding things up. But for this video, things ended up working out a little bit differently just because I tried to do a screen recording for this video and the footage was almost an hour long. And I was like, I'm not talking for an hour. I just can't do it. Okay. So for today, it's going to be a time lapse. And I'm so sorry that the canvas is going to be moving around so much. It's partially what I'm going to talk about today is I struggle a lot when it comes to digital art, and so part of that is that I do flip the canvas around a bunch of times and I'm always moving things around just so I can get a better angle so that way I could draw. But we'll get into that in a second. Basically, all I wanted to do was digitize the sketch from yesterday and make it a digital piece. No particular reason. I just felt like I could do a little bit more with it if it was digital than as opposed to if it was traditional. In my sketchbook, it was just a little doodle, but I decided that I was just going to make it digital. So all I did was took a picture of the drawing. I tried to get it as flat as possible, just so that way it's like an actual true depiction of the drawing and not at like a weird angle. So that way when I sketched over it in the digital piece, it wouldn't look weird. So yeah, I just went ahead and did that, and now you just see me sketching over it, and I'm just trying to get things to look a little bit more anatomically correct. So when I'm doing sketches in my sketchbook, I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants pretty much, and so when I'm doing digital, I actually give myself a lot more restrictions, which sounds kind of like counterintuitive, right? When you're doing digital, you can do pretty much whatever you want, so it seems like there would be less restrictions. But for me, I tend to be less forgiving of mistakes when it comes to digital art than I feel towards my traditional art. This is still something I'm trying to get over, just because I feel like in traditional art, if things end up bad, it's okay. I'm just gonna draw it again anyway. And I don't use an eraser anymore in traditional art unless I'm doing like something that's finished in my finished sketchbook. But even then, I try not to erase things. But when it comes to digital art, I feel like since it's digital and I can erase as much as I want to or as much as I need, it shouldn't really have any excuse to be like less than I planned for it, which is probably like a really toxic way of thinking and not like conductive to having a good art experience. And that's probably why I have such trouble doing digital art. So I'm trying to get over that currently, just because it's like setting myself up for failure. Like I'm building myself up because I think that I can make things look the way that I can in my head if I have enough time to do it. But my skill does not match the imagination that I have currently. And that's okay. Like it's going to take some time to catch up, but I'm letting it frustrate me, and that's not good. So just getting into this piece a little bit. Like I said before, I just took a picture of the traditional art and then I just copied the sketch pretty much one for one initially, but now I'm going in and I'm fixing things that I think are problems. Like I felt like her head was much too small for the size of her body, especially after I cropped and resized it. And it was too small before, like the whole picture was, I just felt like too small and I wanted it to take up more of the canvas. So I resized the whole thing to make them bigger, but then I had to change the canvas size again because I felt like their distance was not the same distance it was on the picture that I'm referencing, which is the cover of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie from like 2000 and whatever. If you didn't watch yesterday's video, that's what this sketch is a reference of. So I was just trying to get it a little bit closer to the proportions and distance that it was in that original cover. I'm not entirely satisfied with the way that this sketch came out. Unfortunately, you don't see me do the full piece in this sketch because, like I said, this did take me like an hour, and then I have to get it down to a reasonable size for video viewing, I guess. So I didn't color it. I did try to start coloring it, and it's coming out pretty okay. I don't really want to talk about the coloring too much because then I won't have anything to talk about in the coloring video. I'm just saying right now that I'm trying to do it in a closer style to my traditional art. So I got some marker brushes that I tried out, and it's coming out pretty good. So if you want to know what it looks like, hopefully you guys will be able to see that next week. But getting more into the sketching process for this one, I did struggle quite a bit just to get the things the way I wanted them to look. Like I said, I do struggle with digital art just because I put a lot of pressure on myself. But also the good thing about digital art is that I can tweak and fix things to my little heart's content. So I fixed her head because it was too small, and I'm able to later, I don't know if you guys saw me already, I changed his leg because I felt like his leg was a little bit off, and also her leg is also kind of off, and there's parts of it I was like, oh, her mouth is much too high up, so I was able to move her mouth down a little bit, and I just went about tweaking things in a way that makes a little bit more sense anatomically. I think partly I have a lot of trouble with digital. I'm trying to get better at digital just because I feel like it could be really much more convenient if I ever wanted to make prints and stuff. I've tried to do digital several times in the past, and it's never really ever come out in a way that I was satisfied with. I wouldn't say that it came out bad or poorly. It's poor in my own terms, or like my own thought process and like my own vision. It feels poor just because it's not what I wanted. Because I've looked at digital artists, and there's something nice about a nice flat look where it's like shell shaded and stuff. It's just never a style that I've liked particularly for myself. And so when I do digital, that's really my sort of default, is to just cell shade, just because I feel like it's easier for me to do. But then I feel like that's kind of a crutch, and it doesn't look the way that I like it to look. So I'm trying to shift to a style digitally that's more like my traditional art, just because I spend a lot of time on my traditional art. I like the way that it looks generally most of the time when it comes out okay. So I want it to look like markers, but digitally. And so I got some brushes that can help me do that, and I'm hoping that'll help me out a little bit. I've fallen in the trap before where I felt like if I just got the right brushes, I would be able to do digital art in a way that I like. And I'm hopefully not falling into that trap again now, but I am trying to get it to look more like markers. So hopefully the marker brush will help me do that. I did have another marker brush, but I didn't like it prior. I don't want to say who it's from because nothing against them. That's not that it was a bad brush. It's a good brush. I just don't know how to use brushes. But I feel like this new brush that I got is a little bit more intuitive for me personally as an artist. I feel like if you don't spell it out for me, I'm a little dumb and I'm not going to get it. And so I feel like this brush helps me out just a little bit more. Oops. I feel like it's starting to sound like I'm getting down on myself. I promise I'm trying not to get down on myself. I'm just trying to recognize my weaknesses. So I'm trying to recognize my weaknesses, but I feel like I've been spending too much time focusing on my weaknesses. So let's focus on the drawing just a little bit more. Now that I have digitized this drawing, I do think that it came out significantly better than the initial sketch in my sketchbook. I like the way their faces came out. I like the way their hair came out so far, and I feel like their clothes does look better than it did in the traditional one that I finished yesterday. I just have to get the coloring down to a place where I like it. I'm trying to think about whether or not I want to do like a dynamic lighting situation or if I want to keep it flat. I feel like dynamic lighting could be cool just because since it is digital, I can experiment a little bit more and I could do a little bit more stuff. So hopefully I will be able to find the courage and push myself to do something a little bit more dynamic for you guys. And also sorry that the sketch, I don't finish the sketch in this video. I'm sorry. I spent so much time on it and I got tired and I was like, I don't want to draw that shoe. I don't want to draw that shoe. And so I couldn't force myself to draw their shoes or their guns today. I couldn't do it. I'm so sorry. But in general, I do like the way that this sketch ends up in the end. I do think it came out a lot better than the traditional one. I am still glad that I did the traditional one though, just because I do have the planning for the colors down now. I know what I don't want their skin and their hair colors to look like, so it's going to be a lot easier for me to narrow down what I do want them to look like when I get to the coloring of this digitally. But yeah, and then I have some hatching, and I didn't cut out the hatching this time because I was like, do you guys miss hatching? I miss hatching, okay? I was like, I'm going to just put in the hatching just this one time. We can have some hatching as a little bit of a treat. If you hate the hatching, you could tell me you hate the hatching, but I like the hatching. I don't know. I just feel like it looks so nice in the drawing, and you should see me do it because I spent so many years trying to get the hatching down, and I almost get like perfect straight lines now. Obviously, there's no such thing as perfect straight lines, but I'm a little bit closer to having nice, good straight lines than I was a long time ago before I could not get the straight lines done in the hatching, and now I can. And I'm sorry if I talk about hatching a lot. It's just I really like hatching. It's one of my favorite shading techniques. It's so versatile. You can hatch, you can cross hatch, you can do whatever. And it always looks nice, okay? No matter what you do. You might think, my hatching doesn't look good. Yes, it does. I promise it does, okay? Hatching is so nice. So you guys get to have a little bit of hatching, just as a treat, just for you guys, because I care about you. Okay, so we're getting to the end of the video now. And you might have noticed something that would disturb you if you are personally a digital artist, and that is the fact that I have not flipped the canvas, not even once. I do flip the canvas in the upcoming minute. I flipped it twice just so I could see what it looks like. One of the good things about digital art is that since it is digital, you can flip the canvas to see how it looks, basically a mirror image. And the reason that you do this is because when you're staring at something from one angle for a really long time, your brain does not see the mistakes anymore. So you're just like, this is just what it looks like. So this is fine, right? So when you flip the canvas, you get to see it from a different angle and you can see all the ways that you fucked it up. And that's so exciting. But really, it's just so that way you can tweak it and fix it a little bit. I do tweak and fix it a little bit after I flip the canvas. So when I flip the canvas, I noticed that her back is not angled as far back as I would have liked it to be. Like the curve of her back. So Hayden looks like he's leaning backwards. But even in the cover art, she's supposed to be leaning, but she's not leaning back quite as far as he is. And so when I was drawing this, I didn't draw her leaning back quite so far. And then when I flip it, I'm like, well, I can just tweak her a little bit so that she's tilting her shoulders back a little bit more. So it looks just a little bit closer to like as you can see, she was tilted a little bit too far forward before. And now that I flip it back the right way, you can tell that she's not quite as off balance. So that's the whole thing about flipping your canvas. I recommend doing it a little bit more often than I did. Like I said, I only flip it twice, which is not enough. So I would just try to flip it a little bit more than I do. But this is the end of the video. Thanks you guys for spending this time with me. I'll go ahead and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.